Chapter 3 The Agonist. I would prefer to write that I was strong and steadfast, ready to face my fate with a firm gaze and set jaw, but if I am being honest, and I have no reason not to be, who else will read this account? Besides him, of course. I was openly crying for much of the time after leaving the elder's office. There were two red-robed sepios on either side of the door as I left the room, and the sight of them there, more than the words of the elder or the contract in my hands, made me understand that this was real and final. The one on the left spoke. "I hold the contract, and you will come with us." His voice was deep, and his tone left no room for barter. He was taller than I, they both were, and both were much more muscular than I could ever hope to be. He held out his gloved hand. I passed him the parchment. He glanced at the seal, and then he turned and walked towards the concourse. The other sepio flicked his eyes to his partner, looked back to me, and said, "Move, Gray, or you will be moved." We left the dim, narrow hallway and emerged onto a wooden, balustrade-clad terrace that overlooked the mid-concourse. 300 meters across from me, I saw the matched 9 rows of terraces, broken up with the zigzags of staircases and the long, radiant support columns. The concourse stretched out on either side as the eye searched, and bent inwards on both sides to the left and right. We made our way to a staircase and moved down into the rainbow river of people moving below. Even in the earliest hours, the concourse flowed with humanity. At least, that was my experience in my quarter, and I rarely strayed far. Today was no different. Guildsfolk of all 9 colors, and the occasional naked visitor or vassal towing a rickshaw came and went, becoming more distinct as we descended. "Is there anyone you'd like to say parting words to?" The sepio who gripped my arm startled me. I know." He stopped me on one of the flights and looked at me. "No one? What do you mean?" I took a shuddering breath, but could not look him in the eyes. "I mean, there is no one that I can think of." He paused, looked away for a moment, and then shrugged. "That explains their absence at the elder's office. Very well, let's go." I held my composure up to that point, but when we entered the concourse I saw that we had moved past the archives, past the small quarters that I called my own. I realized that we would not be stopping, and tears began to flow, and I began sobbing uncontrollably, and people began to look. The sepio who held my contract was ahead of me, and he did not turn to the sound of my sobs, but the one who gripped my arm hard enough to hurt said, "Stop it, keep moving." "But my books, my clothes." "They are no longer yours, keep moving." And I kept moving. The Citadel was all the home I had ever known. It was my sole parent and caregiver. It was all I ever wanted to know, and it was being taken away. I was being taken from it. I was betrayed. I was bought like some animal for slaughter, and no one was objecting. This was the way of things. I had thought I understood the way of things, my place in this place, content to copy books for clients and read and catalog and repair broken spines and reletter faded prints and manuscripts. One day I would be raised to elder and don metallics instead of the muted gray robes I wore, now wet with my tears, perhaps even made high elder of my guild. All gone. I had no guild. Suddenly I was desperate to know what I had been traded for. I began to imagine what might have been offered. Rare metals, fabrics, ancient machines with mysterious and wondrous functions, dusty tomes of arcane knowledge. Another vassal, trained with obscure and useful skills. What is a man's life worth? What is my life worth? How much did Citadel value my life? And just as suddenly, I did not want to know. I was led to the quarter gate that opened into the courtyard. The terraces above me curved inwards, and 200 meters distant I could see the opposite terraces curving in as well. The massive round aperture was open, with its 9 inner and outer iris blades rotated into their receptacles in the rim of the Citadel's glass walls, and the opening admitted a stream of sunlight and the smell of vegetation and manure as the inward breeze grabbed my robes and made them flutter in front of me. Passing through the iris and down the wooden steps to the cobblestone plaza, the wind subsided and I was pushed towards the stables. The faded red stable building was large and rectangular, with a peaked roof and a square opening that the cobblestone path flowed into. Just outside the opening were 2 muscular, horned oxen hitched to an uncovered 4-wheeled wagon with long benches on either side of the interior. "Mount up," said the second of my new companions, and pointed at the rear of the wagon, where the rear gate was open and 2 wooden crates served as steps. The other Sepio entered the stable interior. He emerged a few minutes later with a grim-faced man in a dirty green robe who announced, "He's ready. Just a few till we clear off. Gotta wait for another bunch of sips in their charge." I climbed the crates into the rear of the wagon and sat on the bench. The Sepio I was with climbed up behind me and seated himself at my side with a grunt. The one who still held my contract stood to the rear of the wagon, scanning the cobblestone plaza. Soon there appeared 3 figures in red at the iris opening, a muscular woman in red-stained leather armors with 2 Sepios on either side, both of them toting large canvas backpacks. The armored woman spoke, and all 3 laughed aloud. The seated Sepio beside me looked up and grunted. The 3 descended the stairs and walked towards the wagon.
"Nico, how'd you pull this shit detail?"
the armored woman said, addressing the Sepio standing at the rear of the cart. "It seems my fate to swim neck-deep in the cistern till I drown," he said, smirking.
"Then you best let me shower you off and get you smelling sweet again,"
she said, reaching out and grabbing between his legs. He recoiled, still smirking. "Fuck's sake, Zelda." The others laughed, and the Sepio beside me pressed his lips together. "Stop your faff in a boat. Hop on," said the man in green, waving his arm and moving to the front of the wagon. They climbed the crates into the wagon, the one named Elda making a motion to smack Nico's backside, but he dodged the blow. She sat opposite me, flanked by her companions, who dropped their backpacks in front of them. Nico took the seat on my other side.
"Well, isn't this cozy? Who are you then, Gray? Did Nico spank your bottom? What have you got to cry about?"
"Oh, he's got plenty to cry about, Elda, dearest. He's your package," said Nico, handing her my contract.